Dear Scare Mail, imagine you are peacefully sleeping and out of nowhere, something changes. Your chest restricts and it becomes hard to breathe all of a sudden. You try to get up, but you can't. You have a horrifying realization that you are unable to move. You try to look about your bedroom, but everything is blurry. All you can make out is a mysterious figure watching you, nearing closer as you try to figure out what's going on. They're now face to face with you, so close now you can feel their chilling breath on your face. They speak to you, but you can't respond. This is the horror of sleep paralysis, and it's been going on as long as humans have been around. What causes this mysterious sensation? Is there a scientific explanation for it, or is it something far more sinister? The answers may not give you comfort, but it's about time we start addressing the questions. What is sleep paralysis, and who, or what, is behind it? Nathan was getting ready for bed one night on a late October evening back in 2016. He was finishing up reading one of his favorite novels before drifting off to sleep at around 11 p.m. Hours passed until something went terribly awry. Nathan awoke to a woman cloaked in shadow, sitting on top of him. Her red eyes glaring down at him immediately had Nathan believe he was in danger, and make no mistake, he was. Nathan tried to get up, but he couldn't move. He tried to scream, but he was silent. The woman gazed down at the struggling Nathan and shh his lips as she slowly wrapped her long, ragged fingers around his neck, attempting to suffocate him. Nathan could feel the life draining from his body, but just before it was all said and done, the woman disappeared as quickly as she arrived. Nathan woke up the next morning, severely panicked and scarred by the experience. He felt like he was lucky to be alive, and he was. Who was this woman, and what did she want with Nathan? Well, this is what's known as old hag syndrome, and it stems from different folklores all over the world. The term old hag comes from Newfoundland, where it's believed that a witch or an old hag visits people in their sleep, sitting on their chests and suffocating them. Something similar exists in Scandinavian cultures, where a supernatural being known as a Mara is thought to sit on sleepers' bodies, causing them nightmares. We actually get the term nightmare from this. In Japan, they have what is known as a kanashibari, a vengeful spirit in the form of a woman that preys on both men and women at night, killing them in their sleep. It roughly translates to being wrapped in chains, which is her preferred method of torture. There have been cases where healthy, young individuals inexplicably died in the night while they slept. Most accounts state that the spouses had no idea the person laying next to them was struggling for their lives. Others stated that it just sounded like their spouse was having a bad dream, only to discover them dead in the morning. There's no doubt that the old hag is one of the more terrifying iterations of sleep paralysis, and the most deadly. But the old hag is just the tip of the iceberg, for the next entity on our list is a bit more demonic. February 2006. Rita Jackson was laying in bed and having trouble falling asleep. You see, poor Rita had a bad day at work, and it was making it difficult for her to relax. Rita worked at a bakery as a shift leader, running the front of the house, a job which she loved. But that particular day, Rita had run late, and in doing so, the bakery was running behind on several orders that needed to go out that morning. Frustrated by this, her boss made an example of her in front of the other staff and demoted her to a cashier. Now, this is a really tough day for Rita, and it's fair to say she likely wasn't in the right headspace for a good night's sleep. But what would happen that night would turn her day from a bad one to a terrifying one. Rita awoke in the middle of the night in a daze. She couldn't move and she could barely see, but what she did see nearly scared her to death. In the corner of the room, She could see some sort of shadow figure, standing completely still. She tried to ask who was there, but of course, she couldn't speak. She could feel the person step closer and closer to the bed. Unable to make out who it was, she learned right away that this was no ordinary person. Maybe it wasn't a person at all. Kill him. It spoke to her, its face nearly touching Rita's now. Kill him, or I'll kill you. Rita couldn't help but feel immense fear and panic in this moment, but she was helpless to do anything. The entity continued on. I want your eyes, it whispered to her. I just might take them. Before Rita could react, it was over. She immediately woke up the next morning, unsure if what she saw that night was real. It doesn't take an expert to know that this was some sort of demonic entity preying on Rita's negative thoughts and emotions. Sometimes having such a bad day can leave the door open for beings to latch onto, especially the bad ones. Demons are no different, for they are known to prey on the weak and vulnerable. But demon is a surprisingly vague word, so what was it? Well, it's very possible that this could be the work of a jinn. According to Islamic theology, jinns are beings created by God from smokeless fire, distinct from both humans, who are made from clay, and angels, created from light. While some jinns are neutral toward humans, others can be hostile, engaging in activities that harm or mislead people. Jinns can trick people in many ways, including shape-shifting and even invisibility. And if that wasn't strange enough, they're thought to live in a parallel world to ours, jumping back and forth as they please, especially if they see an opportunity to wreak havoc. Still, there's no saying this was the work of a jinn. It could very well be the infamous man with a hat that so many people claim to see, but alas, we will have to save that for another video. Regardless of who or what it was that tormented Rita that night, it'll be sure to keep her awake at night for the rest of her life. San Francisco, 1994. Joshua Kent had just finished packing his bags for his trip abroad the next morning. He was to fly out to Berlin for a work conference and tour Europe while he was out there. It was shaping up to be a fun and eventful trip, but also a busy one. Joshua would be away from home for almost a month, and as someone who gets homesick, he was feeling a little uneasy about the trek ahead of him. Still, Joshua laid in bed and found himself drifting off to sleep not too long after. Joshua awoke sometime later to what he thought was the sound of his alarm, but it turned out to be something far more unsettling. He awoke to the sound of people standing around him, casually chatting about something. He couldn't make out what they were saying, but was incredibly alarmed by the voices he was hearing. The voices sounded like his mom and dad, and there was a reason it alarmed Joshua so greatly. You see, Joshua's parents had been dead for nearly 8 years at this point. So if these weren't his parents, who the hell were they? Joshua tried to scan the room, but something kept him from moving. He described it like a magnet holding his head and body to his bed. When he tried to look at them, they would always move just out of sight. The elusive beings continued to talk all around him until Joshua faded back into his slumber. He woke up the next morning to nobody there, shaken by the mysterious encounter. These are known as the visitors, and they are arguably the most mysterious of all the sleep paralysis entities. Much like the jinn, they appear to have the ability to shapeshift and phase between realities as they please. However, there is a great complexity to these beings, so complex that they stretch our understanding of reality as we know it. The theory is that you are not in control of your life. You are merely a lab rat, an experiment. The visitors will check up on you in times of great change, merely to see that everything is in working order with their own product. They come and go as they please, and you are helpless to stop it. They can take the form of your friends and family, easing the shock that a creature from another world is standing before you. Many say this is the work of aliens, such as the tall whites or even the grays, using cloaking technology as they examine their subjects. Others say these beings go far beyond aliens, stating that they are from a different dimension and reality altogether. Regardless of where they come from, there's no denying the visitors' intentions are not in our best interest. So, what do we make of these entities, and which is the true mastermind behind sleep paralysis? Well, scientists think the only mastermind behind sleep paralysis is you, your own mind. You see, the human mind is very complex. So complex we still don't fully understand some of its activities to this day. And depending on certain circumstances, your mind can react in different ways while sleeping. One is known as REM sleep dysfunction. REM as in rapid eye movement. This is the most common explanation for sleep paralysis. During REM, the brain paralyzes the body's muscles to prevent us from acting out our dreams. Sometimes, this mechanism misfires, causing one to become conscious while the body remains in its paralyzed sleep state. Of course, there's more than just REM sleep dysfunction to explain this strange phenomena. Some explanations are far more common, such as irregular sleep schedules, sleep deprivation, stress, and other sleep disorders. All of these can cause some forms of sleep paralysis, and it's easier to apply these practical explanations to the stories we were given than the supernatural ones. Rita had a stressful, humiliating day of work, and trust me, we've all been there. It's not unlikely that this stress caused her sleep paralysis that night. If anything, it's the only logical explanation. Same could be said for Joshua, who was feeling great uncertainty and anxiety towards his trip to Europe the following morning. Stress and uncertainty can bring about sleep paralysis, so it only makes sense why Joshua endured this just before his trip. But what about Nathan, you might ask? He was just reading a book. Well, a lot of factors can explain his reason for sleep paralysis. Maybe he read a scary excerpt in his book before bed, bringing about his nightmare. There's no real way of knowing, but it's more plausible than a hag strangling him in his sleep. At the end of the day, all of these instances of sleep paralysis can be boiled down to stress, uncertainty, and anxiety. And I know some of you out there are going to be disappointed with this outcome, but it's important to keep an unbiased and open mind. Sometimes, the most rational explanation is the only true explanation. That being said, I, like many of you, do keep an open mind towards these kinds of things. My imagination runs wild too, so you're not alone in that, believe me. But I will say this, I hope to God it's just REM sleep dysfunction, because if it isn't, well, that would mean we are at the mercy of beings far beyond our understanding. Thanks for watching, and good night.